Hey everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to Lead Your Movement. I'm Angelique Grewers, CEO and founder of The Corporate Agent, where we are the leading experts in helping professional service providers and small business owners to win corporate clients. And this is our weekly live show where we talk to both entrepreneurs as well as other business leaders on how you can best use your platform, your business in order to drive positive change in the world. And boy, do we have a great discussion in store for you today. If you are joining us at 1 p.m. Eastern on a Wednesday, that means you're joining us live. So we want you to definitely get involved with the show today. Please ask your questions and share your comments with us. We're here live because we want this to be a conversation with all of you as well. If you're new to our show, make sure that you are following us on YouTube and also make sure that you're connected with me on both Instagram at Angelique Brewers and also on Clubhouse at Angelique Brewers, where we're often continuing these discussions. So obviously a lot's been going on in the world these last 13, 14 months now, right? We've had a lot going on. And because of everything that has happened with the pandemic, there has been tremendous changes inside of organizations. Priorities have shifted, the way of doing business has shifted, supply chains have shifted, how employees work, the emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion has changed. The emphasis on work life balance and mental well being has shifted. And the importance of companies and small business owners and communities all being in this together has greatly shifted. And so, on today's show, we are going to speak with someone who is truly in the know about what is going on inside of organizations today and how their focus and commitment to working with small business owners and especially women owned business owners and other diverse suppliers has significantly shifted and really grown in support, which is a really exciting thing because we are about to see a major boom that's going to sort of be a rolling boom around the world as companies emerge from the pandemic with the acceleration of digital transformation underway, the acceleration of innovation and problem solving, and all sorts of new and exciting things happening. So we're about to head into a boom with these organizations, with these corporate organizations that are out there. So, if you're a small business owner, you're a professional service provider, you're a consultant, you're a coach, a speaker, a trainer, you really need to know what's going on inside these organizations right now. And so, to help us decode that and understand what is happening inside the organization, we have a very special guest today. Sylvia Pencak is the president of WBE Canada, which is the Canadian nonprofit organization that certifies Canadian women owned businesses and helps to open the doors to corporate and government supplier diversity programs. Sylvia is a highly experienced and well regarded business leader with significant global experience. In fact, she has over 20 years of leadership experience in both the nonprofit and for profit environments, where she's been leading transformational projects and teams. And most recently, as the president of WBE Canada, she has been transforming supplier diversity efforts across Canada and really serving as the new bridge between women business owners and all of the amazing opportunities inside of corporate. So please welcome to the show in our virtual way, the amazing Silvia Pencak. Sylvia, it's so awesome to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Angelique. And I just must say that you are a fantastic role model and the reason behind the success of so many entrepreneurs out there. So it's my pleasure to be here.
Oh my gosh, so I'm so excited. I listen, I start every show asking the same question. So let me start by asking you this question as well. What is the movement that you are leading?
I am helping to bring more Canadian women-owned businesses into corporate and government supply chains.
Why is that important to you personally? I know why that we're going to talk about why that's important to companies, but why is that so important to you?
So I used to be a woman-owned business before my role with WBE Canada, and I personally know how difficult it is to get into those supply chains. There are so many biases and so much red tape in supply chains. It is important that we kind of address it, and we help develop supply diversity initiatives and bring more women into supply chains.
So let's first talk. I want to sort of level set for our audience a little bit today because it's amazing how many people start their businesses, consultants, coaches, PR firms, HR consulting firms, digital marketing firms, and they have no idea what supplier diversity even is. So I'll sometimes mention supplier diversity and just get a blank stare back. Help the audience understand, if this is a new concept for them, what supplier diversity is all about and why these companies that are out there, Toyota, IBM, GE, why do they have supplier diversity departments?
Yeah, so supply diversity is a special program within corporate and government supply chains, so within their procurement system. It actually helps them to establish separate set of rules for smaller suppliers. So for diverse suppliers like women, in the US, you recognize small businesses as well. In Canada, we recognize women, Aboriginal, gay and lesbian communities, people, with disabilities, veteran communities, as well as people of color.
And here in the US, so different parts of the world have obviously different things that they recognize. There's a big push here in the United States for companies to also work, for example, with veteran-owned businesses, businesses that are owned by those from the LGBTQ plus community as well. So the Latino community. So there's various different efforts. And one of the things that a lot of folks don't realize is that different companies have different priorities and different categories of who they consider um, a diverse supplier into their company. Talk a little bit about why WBE exists. Obviously, here we have a sister organization to that in the United States, something called WeBank, the Women's Business
Mhm.
Enterprise National Council. Why does WeBank exist? Why does WBE exist? What are some of the roles that you all play in this process?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. So I personally, when I look at the role of the council, I look at us as a bridge. We exist to connect suppliers to the buyers. So in case of WBE Canada, we connect Canadian women-owned businesses to large supply chains. In case of WeBank, they would connect US women-owned businesses to the corporate and government supply chains. So number one thing that we do is the certification. So we verify the eligibility of the business for supply diversity programs. So we look at ownership, management, and control to make sure that there is majority ownership, management, control by women. In Canada, we also have additional criteria. The companies must have their taxes paid. Not paying your taxes makes you not eligible for those programs. So no corporations want to be approached by CRA or IRS, is what you have in the US, because the business didn't pay their taxes. So, instead of paying your supplier, pay us. So we kind of take care of that as well. But that being said, we certify, but we also focus on developing the suppliers and preparing them for corporate and corporate supply diversity programs. We provide lots of training, workshops, education, and we also do networking. Our networking is kind of unique in a space. So we bring to our meetings buyers or supply diversity leaders. So people strategically looking for suppliers for their supply chain needs and opportunities. So it's not just marketing people coming to sell you services from the corporate. These are the people who are specifically looking for suppliers and looking to find the next supplier for their needs. In addition to that, what WBE Canada does, we also work closely with corporations and governments to help them develop and improve their supply diversity programs. We provide lots of training services, coaching, consulting, meetings, roundtables, conversations. We connect, buyers to each other to share the ideas and lessons learned. We issue lots of resources, templates to make it all possible. So we kind of work from all different angles to make sure that supply diversity progresses and it continues to be developed.
So one of the questions I get asked a lot when it comes to whether it's here in the U.S. with WeBank or any of the other certifying organizations, you have NMSDC, for example, that certifies minority-owned business owners, NGLCC that certifies businesses in the LGBTQ plus community. You have Novoba doing certification for veteran-owned businesses. We often get asked the question: is it worth it to get certified? Because, and I want to talk about the other angle of this. So much of what's gone on supplier diversity for so many years has been just buying the commodities, buying paper products, buying paper clips, buying branded tchotchkes, buying brake pads, right? So
Yeah.
if you're a professional service provider, if you're a consultant or a coach, maybe you provide digital marketing services, architectural services, really a professional service, is it worth getting certified?
So I cannot speak to US market, but I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to reveal a little bit from what we are building and developing in Canada. So I'll just a little bit of history. Supply diversity in the US existed for over 50 years. I believe GM just celebrated 52 years with their supply diversity program, and they were the pioneers in a space. So 52 years ago is when everything started. In Canada, WBE Canada was established in, oh my goodness, 2009. So we are a very young organization. We are still at the beginning stage of developing supply diversity. We only have about 41 corporations and governments who work with us and strategically support supply diversity. So that is actually significant. We have never had over 40 corporates. So this is something we celebrate. But when you look at what we are doing, we are kind of making sure that those opportunities exist across the board. So in Canada, we are looking to make sure that there's suppliers in the product as well as in services that have opportunities within supply chains. We go strategically category by category, and we are connecting suppliers to the supply diversity leaders as well as the buyers for those commodities. So I'll give you an example. WBE Canada is preparing or hosting a matchmaker this May and June, so couple months down the road. What we are doing, we are kind of putting together 3 matchmakers instead of 1, and each matchmaker focuses on different categories. So the first one will be IT and all IT products and services. The second one will be construction and manufacturing, so all the manly categories, right? So all the logistics, etc., where you wouldn't expect women to be, but we have lots of them. And the last category will be HR and professional services. So HR, legal, accounting, all of that beautiful stuff that your audience potentially belongs to. We, believe it or not, we have lots of buyers who come and they're interested in all of those, and they want to come to all of these. So again, opportunities are there. The chances are, if the matchmakers are usually combined together, you are getting lost in those matchmakers, which we are recognizing, and we are dividing matchmakers by the category. So we spoke to all our corporate members, and everybody's excited about it. They are prepping for it. Everybody's coming to all of these category meetings, and they can't wait to meet suppliers. Also, what is very unique about Canada is that we are smaller, right? So WBE Canada currently has over 350 certified businesses in the whole Canada, in whole country. So if you look at it, the ratio is about 1 to 10. So 1 corporate member towards for every 10 WBEs, which is a fantastic ratio, right? Like we are at the beginning. You are probably there are not too many competitors you have to compete against if you are in supplier diversity, which is exciting place to be in. If I'm sending out 5 HR companies, there are only 5 HR companies, right? So how hard is it to stand out among 5? In the US, you are probably competing against hundreds of HR companies. In our case, the numbers are much smaller. One example I would give, I think Phil was at that conference, my first conference as a
Yes.
president of WBE Canada, 2018. And I remember even Phil was excited about it. He
Yeah.
was like, Sylvia, I have never seen anything like that. You had Reggie Humphrey from GM for
Yeah.
a full 1.5 hour talking to 40 people. Like
Yeah.
that is unheard of. And
Unheard of.
this is what we have here in Canada. We are still small, tiny community, and you have amazing access to develop those relationships with the buyers, with supplier diversity leaders. It's much easier to stand out, and I'm really proud of where we are at right now because those connections are made possible.
Oh my gosh, so many good lessons in what you just said. I mean, I think the first one is, swim to where everyone else isn't already.
Yeah.
And, when those opportunities come up or you have the opportunity to be in a small room with the real decision makers, that's just not something that you can pass up. Now, for those of you who don't know who Phil is, for those of you who are joining the show, Phil Dyer is our executive vice president here at the corporate agent. He's been with us for, oh my gosh, 8, 9 years now. So a lot of people in our community know Phil, and Sylvia's been in our community as well, because prior to being president of WBE, she was also one of our community, or still is one of our community members here.
Proud
At
community member.
and yeah, and so I don't know if you know this or not, Sylvia. So when you invited Phil to come up and to speak at the WBE Canada event, I don't know. Do you know what happened to Phil on his way there? Do you happen to know about that debacle?
No, no, what
So you'll
happened?
get everyone will get a fun laugh. For those of you joining us live today, you guys will get a fun laugh. I'll keep it short, but Phil was heading up to Toronto for the conference, and because of our company protocols, it was international travel, so it needed my approval on various expenses that we were incurring. And I was reviewing the hotel, and I thought to myself while I was looking at it online, I was like, you know what? I'll just book it because I'm already on the website checking out the rates and everything. I'll book it because the hotels were selling out like crazy. There was another citywide IT startup tech conference happening. So, like every hotel in all of Toronto for 50 square miles, and I'm not even kidding, was completely sold out. So, I grabbed the hotel room and put it on my credit card while I was approving the expense. Phil flies up to speak at your conference, Sylvia, and it's like midnight when he gets there because he took the last flight out of BWI airport. He gets there, he's standing in line at the hotel, which is mayhem because this huge conference is happening. He goes to check in, and the clerk behind the counter looks at him and says, "I'm sorry, Mr. Dyer, but your reservation is for 1 year in the future." So I had booked it for this is why CEOs, we should not get in the way of our executive assistants. We should just let our executive assistants do their job. So it's midnight. Every hotel in all of Toronto is sold out, and I have booked him a year in advance. So he ends up finding the last room left at a hostel. He took a picture, and essentially it was like a mattress on the floor, a folding metal chair, and a little TV from 1983 sitting on top of a box. That was his hotel room. And then he spoke at your conference the next day. Mind you, he didn't quit the next day on me, Sylvia. He didn't quit. So,
Oh my goodness. I have to tell you, Angelique,
yeah.
now I'm not surprised he did not come back the next year.
Exactly. He's like, "No." So that was my fault, Sylvia, but it was an amazing event, and he had nothing but amazing things to say.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let me ask you this. This has been I I don't know when we'll stop talking about the pandemic, right? Maybe never. Certainly right now, it is omnipresent for all of us. It is ubiquitous. It is inescapable in any moment of time. When you're dealing with the companies, and you have some big companies that are corporate members with you at WBE Canada, TD Bank, Nokia, IBM, Toyota, etc. So these big brands, Accenture, and others. What's going on inside these organizations right now? What is stressing them out? What's not stressing them out? What are they thinking? Take us inside these decision maker minds, because you're spending a lot of time talking to these folks.
Yeah, so number one thing is the reopening, right? So nobody knows what's going to happen. There's lots of unknown, and it's really difficult for C-suites or anybody inside the corporations to know how to plan ahead, right? Like I remember we had an event September 2020, and we were hoping that the reopening will happen January 2021. Well, we are in March 2021, and now everybody's telling me, well, we are shut down till December 2021. So at WBE Canada, we are just playing by what we hear. So we actually decided to shut down all our events and make them virtual until the end of this year. So we did it for a couple of reasons. First of all, to bring, like some sort of peace, into the space, to
Yeah.
not give people false expectations. I do believe that even though the corporates go back to the workplaces, the travel budgets will take a while to kick in. So right now there are no travel budgets. Everything is off the table. So we are not looking at a reopening truly for us for events, at least till January 2022. Even that looks not promising. So right now, in addition to travel industry being hit, of course, and then the workspaces, there's lots of technology needs, and mental health is becoming a massive issue in the workplaces. But the conversations we are hearing the most right now are around diversity and inclusion. It almost feels like corporates are waking up, and they are thinking like, yes, we do have supplier diversity program, but it's only in the US. Like, is it really a corporate value, or is it just something we are doing? So we are having those conversations, and many corporations that are international, they are looking at us, helping them, to expand to Canada, and then potentially to replicate the model and go global, and support smaller businesses everywhere. So there are lots of those conversations that we are having. And of course, some corporates are still struggling with online environment, right? Like, how do we engage employees? How do we engage customers? How do we continue selling? How do we continue winning? So that online engagement component continues to be an issue even into 2021. Online systems set up still continue. And of course, AI, the need for AI solutions and anything AI is massive. So everybody's looking at that is going to be a massive change. How are we going to prepare the customers? How are we going to prepare our workforce? So all of those changes have massive impact on supply chains, on the workplaces, and of course on the C-suite. So C-suite more than ever doesn't sleep anymore, and they have all of these challenges on their minds. And if they are like me, they are hoping that something is going to happen overnight and tomorrow we are back to normal. Wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking. If we could only just wave a magic wand. And what's interesting too, I feel like something else has started to set in right now that I've been sort of watching and pondering. And that is the reality that just because we're in the midst of a very long crisis with the pandemic, sort of a tunnel that has a light at the end of it, but yet the tunnel keeps getting longer and longer to reach the light at the end of the tunnel. In the midst of all of that, it doesn't stop other crises from happening. So it's not like the universe says, "Okay, everybody, you have the pandemic, so we'll hold back these other business issues that are going to happen." On the contrary, we have things like the Suez Canal
Yeah.
crisis, which just further added major stress onto global supply chains. I don't think a lot of people, one of my sort of bugaboos or soapboxes, Sylvia, and you know this because you've worked with us, is that you might think you're a coach, you're working with mid-level managers. So how does the Suez Canal crisis impact the work that you're doing as a coach or a trainer, what have you? And yet, the fact that that Suez Canal crisis happened on an already strained global supply chain means that salespeople are going to have even more not great conversations with their customers, apologizing yet again that they're
Mhm.
not delivering things on time. They could have manufacturing sites that have to hit pause because they don't have the materials they need to run their manufacturing, which is super costly. New product launches can be delayed. So if you're a manager, a senior manager, an executive vice president, you're incredibly stressed now about making your numbers. Something like 94% of chief sales officers have said they have no idea how they're making their numbers this year. So now they're going to be barking at all the other departments because that's what happens. For those of you who've never worked in corporate, when one department can't make their numbers, they start barking and yelling at everybody else in the organization. So these things do trickle down to the professional service providers. And I feel like I want you to talk about this because you talk to both small business owners, the women business owners, and you talk to the corporate decision makers. Address for everyone why it's so important as a woman business owner or a small business owner to be well educated about the business pressures that these companies are under at any given time and why you have to open up the Wall Street Journal and why you have to know what's happening.
Yeah, and oh my goodness, this is such a good question, and I wish we had more time, right? Because we could talk for hours about this. So I'll tell you, like, to start, I would just say I've seen women-owned businesses to come to the meetings with decision makers in large corporations and just come in and say, "Well, tell me about what you do." Um, that is just so completely wrong on so many levels. If you are coming to meet Accenture buyer and you have no idea what Accenture does, like, you just close the door. Like, we open the door for you and you shut it in your face. So another mistake I see, like women-owned businesses do, like, they know the company and they are coming to the company. Well, I sell this specific product, so now help me understand, like, who do I talk to, or help me understand, like, is there somebody in your supply chain you can connect me with? Well, do your research, know who the company is, know what they are struggling with, understand their challenges. And if you show up at the meeting saying, I do understand that, your company is going through these challenges, this is what's happening in your organization, and this is how I can help make your job easier, or how I can help you get ahead, you will stand out immediately from everybody else. So when I talk to corporations, they tell me, "Sylvia, like, our team is bombarded by hundreds of requests from the same category." So let's say you have hundreds of coaches, approaching the same buyer. What makes you different and unique from other 99 in a package? What makes you memorable? What makes you stand out? What makes them want to pick up the phone and call you back? Because you understand their challenges, you understand what they need, and you have exactly what they are looking for. So again, try to stand out, try to be a person who understands, who did the research, and who is easy to deal with, easy to talk to, and not just one of so many who didn't just take time. It just shows that you have that business acumen, you are serious about doing business with them, you mean business, you are prepared. So that would be my number one. But number two, I just want to mention, we work around, a lot with large corporations. So many supply chains are pretty complex. So I'll just mention auto industry, for example, because that's probably one of the most complex supply chains that I can envision. So there are thousands and tens of thousands of specific parts in a single car. So there are about 20 to 30 thousands of parts. So each of these parts is developed by a different supplier. So their supply chain is about like 10 levels deep. It's not like we are working as GM or Toyota with all those 30,000 suppliers. They work with maybe a couple hundred, then those hundreds work with another hundreds. So I always tell suppliers, do your research and know your place in a supply chain. Are you the tier 1 supplier, or are you the tier 2 supplier? Are you the tier 3 supplier? And these are the questions you should be asking supplier diversity people, not like, okay, do you need my services? But what is my place in your supply chain? Who should I be talking to? And this is the informed question that you are bringing to them. And now you are giving them a way to not only buy a product on the spot, which supplier diversity people cannot do anyway, but also to provide you the right introduction and educate you about their supply chain. So I usually, when I talk about supplier diversity, I feel that one of the biggest misconceptions about supplier diversity is that people don't do research about a company, but second, people don't take time to understand supplier diversity, and they try to sell to supplier diversity person instead of using them as a champion within the supply chain and asking the right questions so that those people can champion them around and across the supply chain and connect them to the right buyers and decision makers. So I feel that if you do those two things, you will position your company way ahead of everybody else.
Oh my gosh, there's so much gold in that. I'm gonna try to unpack some of it for folks because there's just so much gold in there. One of the things that I love that turn of phrase that you used, informed question, because I think sometimes people will listen to folks from supplier diversity. We just had at our Real Deal conference, Coca-Cola, American Airlines, Accenture, ADP, all of these, companies were there. And you might take away don't ask questions when in fact it's really don't ask dumb questions. Don't
Exactly.
ask right. Don't ask questions that had you just taken 30 seconds to do a Google search, even from your cell phone, that you would know the answer to it. I cringed when I had Pitney Bowes on stage a couple of years ago at one of our conferences. And the leader from Pitney Bowes said, I was literally at a conference and someone walked up to me and said, what does Pitney Bowes do? They had one question, and yet and he, Jay, who was working at Pitney Bowes at the time, he said, you have your cell phone right in your hand. Do you have internet access on that phone? Because you just used your one question with me to ask what we do when you could have Googled Pitney
Yeah.
Bowes, found out what we did, and come and asked me an intelligent question that would have furthered our relationship. And I think so. I just love that turn of phrase, informed question, because I think that's it's a smart question that's going to further your opportunity versus make you have a first impression that you just appear lazy.
Mhm.
And so, those are really, to me, I hate to say it, but it's a binary choice. Your question will either make you look lazy or it
Yeah,
will make you look well prepared. Those are
exactly.
the two choices here. So I think that's really great. Something else though that you said is about the conversations that you're having, Sylvia. And I think a lot of folks think that supplier diversity are the main decision, are a decision maker, when really they're a conduit to decision makers.
Yeah,
And I think, the decision they're making is much more of a gatekeeper of, am I going to champion, right, for you and make that introduction for you? Or am I going to just kind of hold you at bay because I don't actually think you're ready to
yeah,
have that meeting? When you get the meeting, and this is going to be like what makes my heart sing talking about this. When you get the meeting, let's say you get certified, you ask intelligent questions when you have an opportunity to meet some of these supplier diversity folks. and they're willing to make an introduction to the now end decision maker. What is some of your best advice for what to do when you get those meetings?
Yeah, so I have couple pieces of advice. So first of all, I would just mention what you constantly mentioned when I was in your program, and I'm pretty sure you are saying it up till today because it needs time to stick. So moving the ball slowly down the field, right? So like don't try to score on your first meeting, like just keep moving the ball down the road. So something you mentioned last week in your interview with Haran is developing the connections, right? Like those relationships. And that was something that I took away from that. And I was like, yes, I just wish every woman entrepreneur could hear that advice, because that is what supply diversity is about, developing the relationships. Supply diversity is an effective program. It just requires strategic development of relationships. It's not about I'm making a pitch and now I'm going to get a sale because I'm a diverse supplier. No, your certification makes you eligible for supplier diversity, but it doesn't guarantee the sale. You still need to market your business, develop the relationships, you still need to sell, you still need to have an incredible appealing offer, you still need to get invited to bid on that opportunity, you still need to win and deliver on it. So everything is the same as you were selling it outside of supplier diversity. What you have in addition to everybody else is, number one, companies will track the spend with you. When you become part of their supply chain, you get cemented in for years to come, at least for as long as you keep your certification. Number two, you have additional champion in the supply chain. It's not just the buyers that you are talking to. You have that supplier diversity lead who is there to talk to the buyers. How is it going with my supplier? Are they moving forward? Is there anything else they need? Do they need the training? Do they need anything else? Do they need to partner up with somebody? And they are your champion. So make sure that you do those regular touch points with your supplier diversity lead, even if you were already introduced to the buyer, because that supplier diversity person will be able to push it forward and to be your advocate internally. Also, I recommend that you find multiple stakeholders inside a company, not just one, because people change, right? Roles change, and you do not want to stay dry and cold after you invested a couple months or maybe even 1 to 2 years developing relationships, and now that person is gone and you are okay, now what, start from scratch? That's a delay. So you really want to start developing almost a network inside the corporation and to nurture those relationships and to move them forward. So don't take a lazy approach. Don't think that it doesn't require work. It does, right? So it's a regular sales process. You still need to give it your best. And this is why I recommend our VBs, do not go wide with the companies. Do not try like that thin, approach. Like I'm going to approach 50 companies and everybody like once a year touch points. No, take a deep dive, like select handful of companies that you are going to be focusing on, do a solid research, get to know them, start developing your network inside a company, show up at the meetings, and always go to the same company unless they tell you there's nothing in that company. Even then I would go and ask for introduction to their suppliers.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And I agree. Afia said these are great tips. This is gold. I hope you guys are taking good notes on this. Well, as you were talking, I kept thinking of the expression too. When it comes to your supplier diversity contacts, when you have that relationship, don't do them dirty, right? Like
mhm.
that's it's a very sort of Hollywood slang expression, but don't do them dirty after they've put their neck out on the line for you, because if you have a relationship, you've built it up, now they're going to use their relationship capital to make that introduction for you into the business. And if you don't show up to that meeting and make a good impression, and come prepared to that meeting, you're doing the supplier diversity person dirty by that, because that they just use their capital internally. You hurt them internally. But also, Sylvia, to the other point, once they kind of pass you off to the other decision makers, you still need to keep them informed, because there is
Yeah.
nothing worse than when a supplier diversity director, manager, VP thinks that you're well on your way down a particular opportunity. Something happens, you're out, they don't know it, and they get that news internally blindsided, and you didn't tell them. And I think, or you start doing something new, it goes well, and you expand it, and they don't know, and they're not tracking that spend, and they're not aware. And so, I think people sometimes treat those supplier diversity relationships transactionally versus understanding that they're strategic and long-term relationships.
Yeah.
The other thing too is, I want to go back to something you said as well about understanding where you fall in a supply chain, sort of, what level. Usually if you're a service provider, not always, but usually if you're a service provider, you're a coach or a consultant, you're going to sell right to the company. You're going to work right with training and development, O&LD, HR, corporate communications, and you're going to go right there. If any of you are listening and you're a product company, you really need to know where you fit. I was sitting, Sylvia, next to someone. It was at a conference that I was keynoting, but happened to be sitting where they were getting ready to do the matchmaker meetings.
Hmm.
And this person had this plastic gadget. I'm not going to say what it is, because somebody might know this company, and I'm not going to, throw them under the bus, but it was a plastic gadget, and it served one ridiculous function. Let's call it a cup holder. Let's just pretend it's that's how silly this product is. Okay. It's a
Okay.
plastic cup holder, and not
So
for
one of 30,000 parts. Yeah.
right, right.
Okay.
Well, and it wasn't even a cup holder for an automobile. It was like a cup
Okay.
holder that you could stick on the side of a golf bag here.
Okay.
Okay. Or on a backpack or on a bicycle. I mean,
Okay.
and they're trying to sell this, cup holder esque thing to corporate. I mean, to AT&T, they're trying to sell to Staple, not even Staples isn't even, because you could see it on the shelves of the store, but to an AT&T or a GE or an Accenture. And I remember thinking, this person really had no self-awareness about the
Hmm.
fact that if they were going to sell a product or like that, that they needed to be talking to companies that could maybe brand those products, or, put them in automobiles, or what have you. And I think, talk a little bit about the importance of self-awareness in all of this, because I feel like that can go a long way in preventing a small business owner or a woman-owned business owner from stepping in it, right? Really stepping in it with this lack of self-awareness of what's going on.
Yeah, and I do feel that you will get further along being humble and open and honest. So instead of pretending to be something or know something that you don't, just ask questions. So if I was that supplier, I would just go to a company and I would just ask them, I have this product and I've been selling it to company ABC. Can you please help me understand where it would fit within your supply chain? And this very simple, humble approach will get you much further, because they can say, well, I don't know, let me find out for you. Do you mind emailing me in 2 weeks to remind me? Because of course, 2 weeks after the event, supply diversity, people are bombarded by emails and you will get lost, right? But after 2 weeks, they have more time and they will see your email. So they will tell you exactly how to contact them, what to do, what to say in your email. And if you follow the instructions, if you listen to them, they will tell you how to sell to them, right? So always ask for the next step and ask about, what do you think is my fit? Do you think there is a tier one supplier that you are working with, somebody that I should be talking with? Should I be selling it direct? If yes, which department? So come with questions and not like, here's my product and you have to have this because I don't know what. You can have that approach if you are highly innovative, you are, let's say, AI company, and you sold something to their competitor, and it will make them fall behind if they don't buy it. That would be a good approach to come, well, I sold this to, let's say, Toyota, so you guys at FCA or Stellantis, you want to have that. And now they are intrigued, right? So, okay, let me put you in touch with this department. But if there's nothing of intrigue, nothing innovative, if it just is, product like many others, and you are just fighting because you are a diverse supplier, the chances are they already have somebody who is providing the product or solution you have. It is expensive to replace the existing supplier. So you really need to convince them, and you need to find out a way how to get into their supply chain. So I would just say be very strategic and build your way in slowly but surely.
Yeah, I can't. That's so, man, I just want to bottle that. I think part of it is just really understanding what you're bringing to the table, whether it's a service or a product, and understand strategically how to position that and how to have these conversations. And you know how I feel, conversations are what create cash in your business. So you need to understand how to have these. I have to add to this too, and I think you'll agree with me, just the importance of empathy.
Yeah.
One for the decision makers, the empathy of the fact that they're bombarded by hundreds of
Yeah.
emails and hundreds of phone calls a week, that they get their time wasted frequently, that internally they're dealing with their own stressors and their own challenges. And I've in 2019 I co-presented with some supplier diversity folks from companies like Warner Media, AT&T, Comcast, Kaiser Permanente, some other companies I was out there co-presenting. And I'm going to tell you guys something. Here's some like juicy sort of behind the scenes sort of gossip. When I was with those supplier diversity folks speaking at conferences, Sylvia, I was aghast at the way that small business owners and diverse business owners spoke to them.
Yeah.
I like the first time it happened, I thought it was an anomaly, but literally small business owners, diverse business owners would walk up to these diverse suppliers, push their card into their hands and say something along the lines of, well, you guys are buying from me, but you're not spending enough and you need to spend more with my company. And a literal demand. And I was just, I mean, you've worked with me a long time. And we're very bold in what we recommend, but I was aghast at the rudeness and the audacity and the entitlement of it. And I think, and that went on. That was not like a one time, that was frequently I was seeing that. And I think, you don't tend to find it, I feel like, as much with professional service providers. You don't tend to see most coaches and consultants operating that way. But you do see it sometimes in the commodity space, the product
Yeah.
space. But I just have to say, don't do that. These folks are, working really, really hard. They're really committed. The thing is, they really are champions, Sylvia. I mean, they're putting
Yes, they
their
are.
life and their career into being these bridges between women-owned business owners, for example, and their companies. They're spending their whole life doing this. That's how passionate they are about this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I must say, like most of the supplier diversity people I know, they are highly passionate about what they do. They are real drivers for diverse businesses inside their corporations. And, if they know that you are in, they can help you, like to get more contracts. They can help you to get larger contracts. They can help you with the development. They can really support you. And I think this is like a real missing link for many suppliers who don't understand that. So again, I like win-win-win scenarios, right? Like where everybody wins. And I think doing business this way is always more beneficial than when you are just self-absorbed and just looking at win for yourself. So I just challenge everybody who's listening today, just take a step back and look at your business. Are you building wins for people you are talking to on a day-to-day basis, or is it all about yourself? Because if you start focusing on others and their experiences they have with you, with your delivery, with your company, you will be able to sell much more and you will be able to close the sales much faster. So I know, Angelique, you and I, we have the same values, right? Like we always look at value over delivery, giving people way more than what they pay for. And I think this always goes further. And you can never outgive, like I find that the more I give, the more I receive.
So incredibly true. And yeah, that's one of our principles is, besides for over deliver, just you go first in investing in these relationships. And, I think another golden rule to live by, you just, made me think of this, Sylvia, that we talk about all the time in our velocity program is, make sure that you leave every meeting with a corporate decision maker where they've gained something in that conversation, where they're
Mhm.
walking away from that meeting better off than they were before they met with you, because their time is their most valuable asset. So really make it worth their time when they meet with you. This has been absolutely amazing. Where can folks, let me ask you this first. First, let's talk about WBE, then we'll talk about you. For those who want to learn more about WBE Canada, what's the best way to do that?
So, of course, we have our website, wbecanada.ca. We will be happy, like to support you with any news updates. You can sign up for our newsletter on the website. And for those of you who are looking for certification, just go into a businesswoman tab and look at certification. We only certify Canadian women-owned businesses. So if you are in the US, you have to go to wbank.org. So don't come to WBE Canada if you need certification in the US. Again, you can find us all over, social media. We are very active and engaged.
Very much so. And I know you guys have incredible programming. And to Sylvia's point earlier on, if you are in Canada, if you're a woman owned business in Canada, you've got to get certified, swim to where all the competitors aren't, give yourself that competitive advantage to be in small rooms with big decision makers, get that inside scoop right from them. What about for folks who want to connect with you personally on social media? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so my name is on the screen. So Silvia Pencak, I'm Silvia Pencak everywhere on Twitter, on LinkedIn. These are the two places where you can find me most often. And before you change the topic, I just also want to say that if you are watching this video and you have never heard about Angelique, but you can because of me, you definitely want to check out the corporate agent. So Angelique and Phil are super smart people, and they helped my business. They helped many other businesses around the globe to work with corporations and governments, and you won't be disappointed. So just really check out Angelique's website, thecorporateagent.com, and I highly recommend their program.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that so much, Sylvia. You've been such a valuable member of our community. And I think one of the things that's so magical about our community is that, folks, their journey transpires over time. Their journey transforms. When we first met you, you were running your own woman owned business. Through that, you evolved into connecting with supplier diversity. Here you are, the president of WBE Canada, but you're still a member because the way our community is set up, where people stay year after year after year in our community, folks like you are in the community right alongside of consultants and coaches and whatnot that are selling to corporate. And it's just such a diverse community. And it's a very elevated community where we're all having these kinds of conversations on an
Mhm.
ongoing basis about what's going on out there. And it's really been remarkable to see what you've accomplished with WBE Canada and how much it's grown and elevated, and really the role. I mean, talk about leading a movement. What you've done now as president of WBE Canada in terms of leading this movement for women-owned business owners, everything you've wanted to do, you're now doing in this role, and really using this as a platform for positive change, because we know one thing we didn't talk about today, which maybe I'll have you back and we'll talk about this, is just what happens for companies when they're working with more women business owners and what that means for them in terms of their growth and their transformation. So trust me, the love is right back at you, and what you're doing and how you're using this platform to lead your movement is really astounding. And I think we'll definitely have to have you back to continue that conversation as well. This has been absolutely amazing, Sylvia. I am truly indebted to you for taking this time to speak to the community about what's going on up at WBE Canada. When the gates open again, I will happily send Phil to stay in another hostel anytime.
We'll have a
So
hotel for
happy
him,
to
okay?
send him up there and put him in a hostel again, and make sure that he has an opportunity to sleep on that cot on the floor again. And so make sure his head doesn't get too big. Do you know what I mean? Make sure the ego doesn't get too big. We'll have him sleep in the hostel. It's all good. He's such a good. You know what he said to me? I'll leave you guys with this. When I said to him, obviously, I felt beyond terrible, atrocious. I felt atrocious. It was awful. I was sick to my stomach that I did that. And he said to me, "Well, I used to have to sleep on the back of tanks in Germany in the middle of snowstorms. So anything's better than that." So it was all relative, and he had a good laugh about it. So I have to give Phil props for being such a good sport. Sylvia, you're amazing. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and we're definitely going to have you back.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to be talking to you, Angelique, and having audience to join us.
Awesome. Awesome, Sylvia. Thank you. All right, everybody. So we will be back next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Live for another discussion. Thanks for all of your comments today. And I agree with you, Lisa. Such an insightful conversation. And Helen as well. And Stella, thank you. We're so glad to be here. If you are in Canada, or if you have a woman-owned business friend who is in Canada, please urge them to connect with WBE Canada and encourage them to get their certification. Folks make a mountain out of a molehill. It's like 2 business days of time in order to have this amazing credential, which opens up a whole world of opportunity and connections and relationships that don't otherwise exist. If you're here in the United States and you're a woman-owned business, or you're another diversity-owned business, I highly encourage you to take the time to get certified. It's yet another community, more doors to open, more relationships to catapult your business forward. And it really creates that entire village that's going to support your business and get you where you want to go. All right, we'll be back here next Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Live, for another conversation about how you can lead your movement. Until next time, everybody, this is Angelique signing off.